Welcome to this Xplainer. Okay, today we're tackling a premise that honestly feels a bit counterintuitive, but it's absolutely fascinating. Think about this. What if the true secret to reversing high blood sugar isn't about starving yourself? What if it's not about stripping your plate bare, but actually about adding specific, powerful foods? Yeah, today's sources are going to completely reframe how we think about our own biochemistry.
Let's be honest for a second. Have you been told over and over again that literally the only way to fix your blood sugar is to just ruthlessly cut carbs? I mean, it's the standard advice, right? And man, it can be incredibly frustrating. But here is the incredible truth we're uncovering today. Hundreds of patients have turned their fasting numbers around in a matter of days by doing the exact opposite. They're actually adding food to their daily regimen. No way, right? But it's true. Okay, let's dive into this because the contrast between the old way and this new approach is honestly a real game changer. The old way is just filled with anxiety. You know the drill: eliminating carbs, constantly restricting yourself, and inevitably climbing that dreaded medication ladder. But this new way is actually empowering. We're going to explore adding 10 specific, natural foods that basically talk directly to your cells to optimize your biochemistry.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. First, the insulin resistance myth. Second, 3 mechanisms of healing. Third, the 10 foods to add. Then we'll look at real results with Donna's story and wrap up with a 5-step action plan. Let's get right to it.
All right, Section 1, the insulin resistance myth. Let's look at what's actually happening upstream in your body. Okay, so think of insulin as the hormone that basically unlocks your cells. It's knocking on the door so glucose can get out of your bloodstream and into the cell to be used for energy. But after years on this relentless blood sugar roller coaster, your cells just stop answering the door. The insulin knocks and knocks, but the lock is completely jammed. And that right there is insulin resistance. Your pancreas kind of panics, right? It pumps out even more insulin. Yet the standard medical prescription is often just giving a drug that pushes even more insulin into a system that's already completely drowning in it. But as the data shows, there's definitely a better way.
Moving into Section 2, 3 mechanisms of healing. The foods we're going to talk about actually do 3 very specific jobs.
So, the crucial point here is that every single food we talk about today is going to perform one of these 3 jobs. They're either going to physically slow the sugar coming into your bloodstream, they're going to cool down the chronic inflammation that makes your cells deaf to insulin in the first place, or they will literally wake that insulin receptor right back up. You're naturally empowering your body to do the exact work it was flawlessly designed to do.
All right. Section 3, 10 foods to add. And remember, you don't have to eat all of these tomorrow. You can just gently stack them over the next couple of weeks. First up, we have 2 absolute powerhouses, fenugreek and chia seeds. Both of these are just packed with incredibly strong soluble fiber. Fenugreek specifically contains something called galactomannan. When these seeds hit the water in your stomach, they actually swell up into this really thick gel. Think of it like a friendly roadblock for your carbs. This gel wraps around the carbohydrates from your meal and physically slows your stomach from emptying to an absolute crawl. So instead of a massive glucose flood that triggers a total panic dump of insulin, you just get a slow, steady trickle. It's super easy. You can soak a teaspoon of fenugreek overnight, or just drop a tablespoon of chia in water, give it maybe 10 minutes to gel up, and drink it right down. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the vital difference between the cinnamon sitting in your spice rack. Chances are you probably have cassia cinnamon. Now that contains coumarin, which is actually kind of hard on your liver in large daily doses. What you really want is Ceylon cinnamon, the true cinnamon. It is absolutely packed with polyphenols that behave almost exactly like insulin themselves. Seriously, just a quarter to a half teaspoon a day helps your insulin receptors grip onto glucose much more tightly. If you pair it with a carbohydrate meal, like a bowl of oatmeal, you're going to see maximum impact for sure.
Okay, I want you to pay really close attention to this one, because broccoli sprouts are arguably the most underused food on this entire list. And to be clear, we aren't talking about the full mature broccoli heads here. We're talking about 3-day-old sprouts. Astonishingly, these tiny little sprouts contain 50 to 100 times more of a compound called sulforaphane than mature broccoli. I mean, that's wild. That sulforaphane goes directly to your liver and literally quiets down its overnight glucose factory, which, by the way, is the main culprit for those inexplicably high fasting morning numbers you might be seeing. Just throw a quarter cup of them raw onto a salad or a sandwich and you're good to go.
Next up, we've grouped together avocado and walnuts. Look, we've got to stop fearing the fat. The healthy monounsaturated fat in just half an avocado and the polyunsaturated fat in a handful of walnuts are basically your best friends here. When you add them to a starch, they instantly put the brakes on how fast it turns into blood sugar. They soften the blow of the carb, turning what would have been a sharp, nasty blood sugar spike into a nice, gentle flat line. Plus, the fat in walnuts specifically helps heal your endothelium. That's the delicate lining inside your blood vessels that high blood sugar actually damages first.
Moving right along to fatty fish, like salmon and mackerel. Now, this doesn't just slow down your meal. It actually repairs the much deeper root problem. You see, chronic inflammation is what literally physically jams the insulin signal right at the surface of your cells. But the omega-3 fats in these fish, specifically EPA and DHA, are incredibly powerful natural anti-inflammatories. By eating fatty fish maybe twice a week, you're actively cooling that inflammation down. You repair those cell membranes and finally let the insulin receptors hear that knock on the door again.
Next up, we have eggs and lentils. These are two incredibly cheap, totally accessible foods that trigger what research actually calls the second meal effect. It's pretty amazing. When you swap out a sugary cereal for 2 or 3 whole eggs, yes, keeping the yolk included, or when you swap white rice for slow-carb lentils, you don't just steady your blood sugar for that specific meal. You actually walk into your next meal with calmer numbers and a significantly smaller spike. Those annoying mid-morning cravings just completely disappear, and your 3-month A1C average reliably drops.
And for our 10th food, I want you to consider this frankly staggering number, 30%. Check this out. If you take just 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, properly diluted in a big glass of water about 10 to 15 minutes before a carb-heavy meal, the acetic acid physically slows your stomach emptying. It also helps your muscles pull glucose right out of your blood. The end result? It can drop your after-meal blood sugar spike by up to 30%. I mean, guys, that is a literal drug-sized effect from a super simple pantry staple you probably already have in your kitchen right now.
All right, Section 4, Real Results. Let's look at Donna's story to see how this actually plays out in the real world.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of actually adding food to your diet. This case study follows Donna. She was 63 years old, staring down a fasting blood sugar of 180, and her doctor was basically telling her it was time to add a second medication. Naturally, she was absolutely terrified. But instead of just starving herself, the sources show that by adding these exact foods, everything changed for her. She had avocado and eggs in the morning, a little vinegar before dinner, and swapped her rice for lentils. Literally within week 1, her numbers started dropping. By month 3, she was working with her doctor, completely off that second medication, and her A1C was perfectly normal. And the best part, 2 years later, her body is still holding that sugar down naturally.
Which brings us to Section 5, the 5-step action plan. Let's get you set up to start tonight.
Now, before we list out the steps, the source material includes a really absolutely crucial medical caveat that we have to talk about. These foods are so incredibly potent that if you're currently taking insulin or a sulfonylurea pill, combining them with this dietary approach can actually drop your blood sugar way too fast. So if that's you, you absolutely must add these foods with your doctor actively monitoring your numbers so they can safely walk your medication dose down. It is highly, highly advised not to just stop your prescriptions on your own, okay?
All right, let's move to the steps and see how this all builds into a super simple plan you can literally start tonight. Step 1. Swap your breakfast toast or cereal for eggs and avocado tomorrow morning. Step 2. Soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in water tonight so you can drink it tomorrow. Step 3. Put a 1/4 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon right in your morning coffee. Step 4. Drink 1 tablespoon of diluted apple cider vinegar right before dinner. And Step 5. Just swap out your white rice for lentils a couple of times this week. It's really that simple to hand your insulin its job back.
So, by following these steps, you're definitely going to bring your sugar down during the day. But I know a lot of you might be sitting there wondering about a very strange, kind of frustrating paradox. You know, you've fasted all night, you haven't eaten a single bite of food, and yet your morning number is somehow your absolute highest reading of the entire day. Why on earth does that happen? Well, there is actually a very specific reason your liver's overnight glucose factory goes into absolute overdrive while you sleep. And more importantly, there is a proven way to completely shut it down. We're going to uncover exactly how to wake up to lower numbers in our next explainer, so you absolutely won't want to miss it. See you then.